just want to acknowledge that people do die in hotels a lot more often than we think. Within the first 3 years of the property I worked at being open, we had a person die in their room from a heart attack. He was a long-term guest working in fracking, so he'd leave early in the morning and come back late at night. I typically avoided him at all costs because he'd made some really inappropriate and suggestive comments to me a few times. And I remember the night he died, having him come to the desk and thinking, please just go away. I worked for 4 years after he died, and every couple of weeks, I'd hear the back door unlock but not open, like when you used your key outside it made a loud sound. And I'd see a movement detector pop up on our surveillance screen that would track from that door to the hallway where his room had been. Sometimes it would pop up in the little honor system store we had before moving to the hall. After about a year of this happening, my coworker mentioned something about it and we realized we'd both seen it happening. On the other hand, my mom's hotel had several deaths. One was a woman who didn't pass in the hotel but was declared dead at the hospital, and another was a SIDS infant. There were also some disturbing things happening. In one, the room had blood all over it and an apology note, but no one was in the room. And another case involved the FBI looking to locate a child who had been trafficked. They located the hotel because of a billboard seen through a window of the hotel room. All of these things happened in the same room. There was always a weird feeling in that room. When I worked the front desks, there would be phone calls down, but no one on the other line. I'd hear noise complaints about that room, but the room was empty. That sort of thing. Housekeepers checking empty rooms would ask if anyone has been moved out of that room. Not unusual since it faces a highway, but they'd ask because there were impressions on the bed but no record of a move happening. One time we had a guest come down the next morning and casually say, "You know that room's haunted, right?" before just walking out. I feel like none of this is keep you up at night terrifying, but it's all unnerving to experience. I worked in a Hawthorne Inn for roughly a year as a houseman, and working one night shift, it was roughly 2 a.m, getting close to the end of my shift. I had music playing in my earbuds after sweeping the upstairs hall when I saw a middle-aged man in a blue hoodie with jeans at the end of the hallway. He walked towards the stairs and I thought nothing of it. I followed, getting ready to leave, and I asked my manager who was at the front desk if they saw them come down. They didn't, and as I was about to leave, we both heard the stairwell door slam. So I went to investigate and nobody was there. I left at the end of my shift. Then, roughly 2 days after that incident, I was taking the trash out to the dumpster when I noticed a white sedan at the outskirts of the parking lot that had been sitting there for weeks. I made my way over to check it out as we were thinking about getting it towed. As I approached, the window was cracked open and the smell that came out was horrible. I noticed the motionless body in the driver's seat that looked to be long dead due to the fact that he was fused with the car seat. Then, I noticed his clothing, a blue hoodie and jeans. I worked graveyard in an old boutique hotel. It was only me and the front desk lady. I didn't have much to do at night, so I would sit in the lounge and watch movies on my laptop. One night I was watching a movie and I looked up towards the front desk and I saw a little boy staring at me. In my head I thought, oops, didn't hear the elevator door open. Must be a family checking out. I set my laptop down and got up to walk into the lobby. Once I walked around the corner, there was no one there. I radioed the front desk lady and asked if she saw anyone on camera, to which she replied no. The boy was probably 9, wearing an old newsboy's outfit from the early 1900s. It didn't creep me out, but definitely made me question my sanity. So I didn't work there, but on a trip to Ireland, I stayed at the Ballyseed Castle. It's like a B&B castle, so I thought it maybe had a ghost. I was sharing a room with 2 other girls and we were all asleep. I woke up around 3 a.m. and saw a shadow figure looking over me. I was terrified, but just kind of tried to not freak out and wake my friends. We had breakfast the next morning, and the guy who was the waiter/castle expert confirmed that there was a ghost there named Hilda. She actually seems sweet, but apparently she scares a lot of people doing the same shit. I went to her grave on the property and wished her a good rest. I told her thanks for visiting and that I was sorry I got scared. I used to work at a hotel that was over 100 years old. My office was downstairs from the lobby. It used to be a ballroom. It was after 1 a.m. and I was coming from an event, headed to my desk to wrap up financials. As I walked the stairs downward, I could hear a party. Glasses clinking, muffled voices, and music. It was completely dark. I rounded the corner, flipped a switch, and now it was totally silent. A room of cubicles just as it should be. I was interning at a hotel earlier this year. All the interns were offered a room in the hotel. We had to share the room, 4 in each. My roommate and I were the only boys there, so we shared a room. The other rooms were all girls, 4 in each. My roommate and I liked to mess around with the girls by knocking their doors and running off back to our room. There was one night, we did the usual knock and run. Then around 5 minutes later, someone knocked on our door. I ran to the door to open it and was surprised that there was nobody there. The girls don't knock on our door back, they usually just yell from their rooms. Plus, we had a doorbell. We just shrugged it off and went to sleep. The next day it happened. The same 3 knocks on the door. We opened the door and no one was there. Then all of a sudden, a few minutes later, our room just started to smell. It smelled like something was rotting, but it wasn't garbage because I already threw the garbage out. This knocking continued every day at the same time until I finished my internship program. The thing that bothers me to this day is the smell. I know something wasn't right. Whenever we prayed, the sink in the bathroom would start flowing by itself and we would hear knocking coming from inside the bathroom. The girls never experienced these kinds of things, only my roommate and I. Sometimes when we don't get the knock, we would say, "Did you forget to greet us today?" out loud, and only minutes later, we would get the same 3 loud knocks. It was also at this hotel that I had my first experience of sleep paralysis. It happened on my first night there. The whole bed was shaking and it was by far the scariest thing I've experienced. My friend grew up in a hotel and he said as a kid, he saw a man in a morning suit sitting next to his bed, just staring at him. Run-of-the-mill haunting. It wasn't until years and years later that as he physically changed, he began to realize that that man in the morning suit was an older version of himself that had appeared as an apparition. He barely talks about it today because it still scares him a lot. I worked at a hotel that had an attached library to the lobby. We lost power one night. It was a summer thunderstorm, and I was sitting in our lobby with blazing emergency lanterns everywhere, and realized at 3 a.m. I was hearing footsteps in the attached library. It's only about 4 or 5 footsteps, but I never heard the back door open. They never went past me to the library. I currently work at a hotel in Florida, and I get weird vibes on the 4th floor and see and hear things when nobody is present. I work nights, mind you, so it is kind of creepy. My manager actually told me that one of the maids ran out of the hotel screaming after she said someone pushed her against the wall in a room when nobody was there. Keep in mind, all of our rooms are on camera. Also, the front desk lady for the morning said she heard loud talking coming from a room that was vacant. Keep in mind, we have CCTV running through all of our floors. Also, the front desk lady for the morning said she heard loud talking coming from a room that was vacant. When she went to check, it stopped and no one was there. When she left, it started up again. Weird stuff. I grew up and still live in a pub with some parts dating back to over 500 years. It sits alone on a hill in the middle of nowhere. It used to be a coaching inn, and then a transport cafe before the motorway took the cars away. Personally, I've heard and felt somebody walk behind me whilst laying up the dining room, only to inspect and find nobody present. I've seen shadows loom over me whilst in bed through my bedroom door, which I didn't think I had left ajar. And I heard a chair scraping across a wooden floor when there's nobody else in the bar area after close. Guests have reported the sound of horse hooves at night, keeping them awake without any evidence of horses. And one room in particular is notorious for people reporting another person being in the room with them, either sitting at the end of the bed, standing at the window looking out, or turning on the taps in the en-suite. There's a table in the dining room that people often complain is cold, despite everywhere else being warm to hot, and numerous staff, including myself, have experienced strange things there. I'm sitting above the pub right now, and I've scared myself writing this, so I have to stop. So I personally never worked at a hotel, but I did stay at a haunted hotel once in downtown San Antonio. I had no idea it was known to be a haunted location until we were actually checking in. And to my surprise, we ended up in the room right across from where a murder happened, of which these haunted hotel stories seem to stem from. I was excited, so that night while in the hallway, I was taunting the supposed ghost as I wanted to experience something paranormal. Later that night, I woke up around 3 a.m, under the blanket at the very foot of the bed, as if I had been pulled. Not sure how that happened, nor am I sure I want to know, but it was strange nonetheless. So I don't work in a hotel, but this is definitely one of the weirdest things I've experienced in one. So my significant other and I arrived in our hotel room, rather bushed after a long drive. My significant other is sitting at the little desk browsing on her laptop. I'm chilling on the bed, stretching my back and just gazing up at the ceiling, my mind wandering hither and thither. I'm checking out all the usual ceiling gadgets that are common in hotel rooms, like sprinkler heads, fire smoke detectors, and such. I work in building design and planning, and most people in that field will probably agree that when you're deep into a project, it kind of tends to pop into your thoughts a lot. My current project was an elementary school build, and the last thing we were working on was implementation of fire codes, specifically fire exits for kiddos and teachers. So I'm still looking up and my eyes kind of focus on the fire smoke detector, and I start thinking about the school design and visualizing the children evacuating, and suddenly my thoughts kind of take off and I'm seeing flames and kids running down the fire escape. It's pretty intense, but they're just thoughts and I shake my head and move on to something else. I say nothing to my significant other. So some minutes pass and suddenly the in-house phone rings, which startles us both. This was around 2005 to 2010ish, before cell phones were everywhere. My significant other picks up the phone on the desk and I hear them answer, "Yes," and then, "No, everything's okay here," and then hangs up. "What was that?" I ask. "Oh, it was the front desk. They said they got a notice on the board that the fire alarm in our room had gone off and wondered if everything was all right." Not mine, but I've been told experiences from family and friends who worked on the strip as housekeeping. The most active place is the Bally's Hotel. It used to be the original MGM, which suffered a fire in 1980 and killed 85 people from a fire that got worse because of crap fire regulations at the time. You feel like you aren't alone when walking the corridors to your room. Random knocks and coughs when you're trying to sleep. And even though most casinos allow indoor smoking, I've been told you get the whiff of burning odors randomly when the people who are gambling are smoking plain cigarettes. The Rio has had a few suicides. The housekeeping workers told me they have guards who they can call and stand outside the door when they don't feel safe in an empty, checked-out room. It's rare to see figures, you just never shake off the feeling of not being alone when it comes to the much older strip hotels. I was the front desk manager of a resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was high-end, like where an NFL football teams would stay when they traveled, and all sorts of famous people rolled in and out of there So I had my fair share of stories. But there's one room we could never rent out, even if we wanted to. Well, one floor, I should say. So as for the resort, a new company took over and fired me and a bunch of other people. It's a chain hotel now. It had two sides, the east and the west. The east side was the part connected to the lobby. It had a bigger pool, the common area with games, and where breakfast was served. It was far more busier than the west. Each side had 4 floors, and while the 4th floor on the east side was fine, the same couldn't be said for the west. The 4th floor of the west side was one big room. It had anything you could imagine in there. A grand piano, billiard table, TVs, consoles, full kitchen, a floor of rooms, you name it. That's where we would put teams or bands who came to stay. It belonged to the owner of the hotel. He made it so he could basically live there as he got older. Well, he passed away a couple years into me working there, so we decided to rent it out instead. The first couple of occupants would complain about noises and small inconveniences, but around the 6th occupant, things got really out of hand. I remember it so clearly because I was scared out of my mind and didn't know what to do. It was about 2 in the morning and I was working the front desk. I got a call from room 410, 4th floor west side, and the caller was panicked and asked to check out immediately. I informed them that I could transfer them to another room or check them out of their stay, and they didn't even consider transferring, they just wanted out. I tried to get an explanation, but all they could say was, "I'll tell you more in the lobby," and hung up. I was confused and waited for them to come down, and they eventually did. They were all out of breath and pale. They explained to me that the music just won't stop. They said that the grand piano was playing all night on its own, and that the microwave would constantly beep and all the lights would flicker like strobe lights. I started to get anxious, but I helped them check out. Once that was settled, me and a few late-night coworkers decided we had to check to make sure. What if they were lying and just wanted a free stay for a night? We made our way up there, and it all seemed so normal. I was embarrassed that I ever felt scared and upset that I had refunded such an expensive stay. As we checked all the rooms, we heard a glass shatter. We went back to the kitchen to see an alcohol bottle had broken, and there were shards and drink all over the floor. Next thing we knew, it was all happening again. The lights would flicker, we'd hear footsteps, doors would close, and more. We ran out of there as soon as possible. We agreed we wouldn't rent the room out again, and only give tours if asked. When the company bought out, I warned them about room 410 before they fired me. But all they said was, "We get it, maids don't want to clean up that floor of a room, right?" And that was the end of it. No one believes me. Only the people who were there in the room at that time know what happened, and everyone else calls BS. But it happened, and I have the scars to prove it. I worked as a night guard in a hotel. I was the only staff on site during my shifts. I lived in a small town nearby Amsterdam, so there's always a few people in the hotel during the weekends and holidays. Outside of that, not so much. It's situated at a road that's deserted at night. I usually come in at 11 at night. This particular night I came in and 3 Irish fellows are hanging around the bar. Manager is making ready to close the bar and head out. I start making my usual security round. It's gonna be a slow night. When I come back, the Irish guys have headed to their room and my manager goes home. My work also involved light cleaning and prepping some stuff for breakfast. I turn on the TV, National Geographic, and it's Neil deGrasse Tyson. Love that show he did, Marathon too. So I start my business and go into the kitchen to make me a sandwich, and I hear the front desk phone ringing. I go to the front desk, and as I pick up the horn, it stops. So I go to the kitchen again, and the phone rings again. I pick it up. Silence. I hang up to go back into the kitchen. 3rd time's the charm, right? And the phone rings once more. I pick it up, and an icy cold female voice asks if dogs are allowed. I tell her that yes, dogs are allowed, but only on the ground floor. She hangs up without saying anything. At this point, I decided to forego my sandwich and start cleaning. 5 minutes later, I hear the loudest bang on the window. The hotel has large windows at the front. My heartbeat is felt in my throat. I'm scared. The hotel is not in the best neighborhood and has been robbed 3 times before my employment. I duck behind the desk, emergency button in hand, ready to bolt into one of the empty rooms using the skeleton key I had if need be. I stayed there motionless for like 3 minutes before I decided to take a look. Nothing. Not even a dead bird or anything. I check if the front door is properly locked, and as I do, I hear a sound from the kitchen or employee room. I decide against better judgment and go to check it out. Nothing. Another loud bang. I sprint to the front. Nothing. The distinct sound of a door opening in the employee space. At this point, I feel frightened, like really scared. Not the same kind of nervousness when you're walking at night, but really tense and sweaty, like I'm gonna die, fear. I'm really juggling between just going to do my job or informing the police. I decide to make one more round to check everything out. As I step into the employee space, I hear a loud beeping noise which I immediately recognize. The phone makes that sound after 30 seconds when you don't place the horn back when there's no call. I sort of run to the front desk and see the horn is beside the machine. Someone must have been in there, I'm sure. That was the last thing that happened that night aside from a plate moving. The hotel is close to a graveyard, like 500 meters away maybe. Many crazy stuff happened there, spirits perhaps. I'm somewhat glad I got out. My location is rich with history. Another short but good one. We had a room that if a woman would enter and sit on the bed with all lights off, something incredible would happen. Once sat alone, she would simply say, "Please, sir, I need light to see. Can you help me?" Lights would immediately turn on, but only if she was alone. Almost all of our female staff tested it. We always said, "Thank you, sir," before leaving. One always needs to be respectful. Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you for all the likes, comments, subscribes, the feedback, and kind messages. I really appreciate it, and it encourages me to keep making more content for you guys. I know originally I said I was going to post about 100 videos this year, but I feel more motivated to go even beyond that because of you guys. So if you're new to the channel or haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to get updates on my newest videos. Thanks again.